What is the relationship between centering prayer and welcoming prayer? They are both prayer practices which open us to God's healing presence and action. Welcoming prayer is consent on the go. Centering prayer is the prayer of consent. In centering prayer, we are letting go of our thoughts. In welcoming prayer, we are letting go in the events, in ordinary and extraordinary events of life. As prayers of consent, they are built on our willingness to say yes to God, to do God's will. And consent is saying yes. And consent is saying yes without knowing what is going to happen. And we all have committed relationships, or have had them, where we have said yes to another person, and not, without really knowing what was going to happen. And if we look back, the hindsight shows us more about what has happened than looking into the future. But these relationships that have had some wonderful moments that we never expected, and then maybe some less than wonderful that we also didn't expect. But we have made that commitment. We have said yes without knowing what's going to happen. One powerful example I know of consent is a young woman 2,000 years ago, and an angel came to her and said incredible things. She asked a clarifying question, but then she said yes. And the course of history was changed. That woman was Mary, the mother of Jesus. And I suggest that our consent to God's healing presence and action in the welcoming prayer and the centering prayer can change us, can transform our lives and the lives of people with whom we share time and space. Powerful, powerful thing, consent. And I think the reason why we don't intuitively know how powerful it is because we live in a world that doesn't value consent. In many ways, we live in a disposable society, and disposable products, whatever. And one of the ways I'm amazed at the lack of commitment is with doctor's appointments. I'm always reminded the day before that I have a doctor's appointment. And I say to myself, I get a little bit piqued when I get the phone message. I know I have an appointment. I'm going to be there. But not everybody in our society has that same level of commitment. Another way that welcoming prayer and centering prayer are like one another is that they both operate below the top 3 inches of our heads. Underneath that thinking process which at times leads us down the wrong path or gets us in trouble. And one of the ways that thinking process can get us into trouble is because it feeds our frenzied need to find something outside of ourselves, to fuel our compulsions or to mask our pain. The thinking process fuels the addictive process. It truly does. And so in centering prayer and welcoming prayer, what I do is I operate, as I said before, below that. In centering prayer, I do that by resting, by just resting in the prayer, in the presence and action of God. And in welcoming prayer, I do that by being attentive to what I am experiencing in my body. And then gradually what happens is that I realize that I am more than my thoughts, and that I do not have to be dragged around by my thoughts all the time, that I am free from my thoughts. And I realize also that I don't have to justify, rationalize, and glorify everything I do, because that's, once again, the thought process that does that. So both practices lead to freedom, lead to the healing of God's presence and action in our lives. And one of the aspects also is that the centering prayer starts often the unloading of the unconscious. Stuff starts to bubble up from our unconscious. And as a matter of fact, that bubbling up continues in everyday life. to such an extent that everyday life can become the path to the healing of the emotional wounds of a lifetime. And you might say, how does that happen? Well, typically with me, I finish my centering prayer in the morning and life is good. I'm ready to go out and meet the world. But, life can get bumpy, very shortly after I get in my car. And so what may happen is I may stop for the newspaper and the person ahead of me may not hold the door for me. And I rather maybe innocently think, well, under my breath, how rude. And then I get into the, on the highway and somebody cuts me off. Rude, thoughtless. And then I start up the driveway to the complex of the office building where I work. And I really get the impression that the person behind me would like to move his vehicle into my car because he's driving that close to me. And I'm a little bit annoyed. And so I get into the office and somebody greets me, "Good morning." And all of a sudden I'm aware I don't want to return that good morning. Inside of me, a little part of me wants to say, what is so good about this day? Because of what has happened on my way into the office. But it's not really, it's my reaction to what has happened. I do not have to be insulted by people. I really don't. So I have the opportunity at that point in time to bark back at my coworker, or to be polite, at least civil, and to be aware of what is happening in my body, of what I am experiencing, and then use the welcoming prayer, pray the welcoming prayer practice to open to God, healing presence and action in that particular moment. So powerful, powerful interplay, powerful tools for our healing, for our freedom. So I encourage you to continue with them or begin your work, because both of them are part of the contemplative work of love. Thank you.